Hi. Today I want to talk about the book The Rational Optimist by Matt Ridley. And mostly I won't be talking about the actual book, I'll be talking about how the book changed the way I think about nearly everything in life. When I first read it, I was about 18 or 19, and I was interested in communism. I wasn't a communist just yet, but I was sort of a quarter of the way there. I was talking to people about communism and sort of reading the Communist Manifesto just to see what all this was about. And I had these kind of ideological ideas about how the world would be better if poor people could be a little bit less poor, and all sorts of good intentions, which I still have now. But what I want to talk about is how reading the Rational Optimist was my first step into understanding economics and capitalism, and in some way understanding the entirety of human history, which sounds rather dramatic, but I can't believe that I knew so little before I read it, and I know so much now as a consequence of reading it. So I'll tell you a bit of a story about when I read it, because I think it's kind of important and it adds a little bit of flavour to the book review. So I was 18 or 19, and I was visiting a friend in Leeds who worked at a supermarket doing shifts. And they had a shift while I was visiting that lasted from about 6 p.m. to about 10 p.m. So I had to spend the evening entertaining myself in a strange city, Leeds. Not that it's strange, but it's strange to me. With no PC, no books, no entertainment really. But I did have the audiobook of The Rational Optimist on my phone. Audiobooks, I should say, are a much easier way for me to read books than reading, because they keep my attention much better. And what I really like to do is to go on walks while listening to audiobooks. So that's what I did. I decided to just go into Leeds and have a real good look around for a couple of hours while my friend was working, and just listen to this audiobook. I'd heard it was good, and I was hoping that it was engaging enough to stop me getting bored, and it turned out that it was. So, as I say, it was a few years ago, and I haven't really read it since, but I'll try to sum up what the book is about. The first few chapters of the book, as I recall, are an account of the history and prehistory of humans, and how I think the first chapter I think is called How Ideas Reproduce, or something along those lines, about human innovations and the ideas that helped bring humans out of living in prehistoric tribes and hunter-gatherer societies into everything we see around us in the modern world. So I never really understood before I read this book that capitalism and free markets and trade and the division of labour was so important to the history of mankind. And maybe if I'd thought about it, I could have come up with a similar answer, but I hadn't really thought about it that way before. And like a lot of people who are 18 and 19, I kind of thought that money was evil, and that it was the source of evil in the world, and it made people act selfishly and it made them unhappy. But the story of the human race is kind of a miracle. When the way that Matt Ridley, the author of the book, sets it out, he talks about, he talks about how long humans lived on the earth before discovering the first, I think it's like a hand axe, or there's this one invention that once one culture discovered it, it's rapidly spread across the entire world and everyone had it, and you can tell from archaeological records it's an extremely old idea, but the point is that a hand axe is just a rock tied to a stick or something like that, but no one could come up with it just spontaneously. Only one person, one civilization came up with it, and they had to spread it to everyone else. So that's just a sort of proto idea, but the point is that every feat of human discovery and every human invention and all of the things that we appreciate today are a result of someone being incentivized to create and innovate and build things. And I was walking around Leeds while listening to this and looking at all of these buildings, and I was walking along a canal at night time, and it just following the path along the canal into whatever district that it led me into, and it led me through this industrial estate. And I was just thinking about how every single brick that had been laid down, and every company that had been set up, and every canal that had been built, and all the boats on the canals, all existed because someone was paid to make it. And it's so amazing when you finally see the world that way and think about how the inventions that prevent your children dying in infancy or prevent your wife dying in childbirth, they're so important, and the people who discovered them wouldn't have discovered them if there was no reward for doing it. I'm not saying that they were selfish and they didn't care about the lives they were going to save, because they did, but they also need a roof over their head, and they need to feed their own families, and they need to have a job, and these inventors and scientists and innovators and builders and all sorts of great thinkers and not so great thinkers who just hard workers, they all go towards building this amazing world where your teeth don't rot and fall out of your mouth, and you don't have toothache all the time, and you can live in a house on a bed instead of in a hut on the dirt floor like people used to, and you can read a book written by someone all the way across the world, and just all these things that we should be grateful for. And I'm not trying to be sentimental saying people should be more grateful for take things for granted, but I believe that the people who say that money is evil and capitalism is evil are missing everything it's done for the world. It's the division of labour and the sort of invention of trade and the invention of money have done more for human civilization than anything else. So much more. And the fact that some people call it evil or say it's just selfishness and greed, they're missing so much, I think. And once I started to see everything that way, as this amazing product of thousands of years of capitalism, I started to see these people who I'd previously thought were great thinkers. I'm talking about certain left-wing thought leaders or writers, and just myself. I saw my own ideas of how the world worked, and they just seemed a little bit silly. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that these people in the comment section of my videos talking about the red pill and welcome to the red pill, and you don't even know you're taking the red pill, and I'm quite familiar with the term of the concept of a red pill, but what I really want to say is that the first step I took from being left-wing to being whatever I am now, like libertarian, conservative, I don't even know, probably not very left-wing anyway. The first step I took was the most important step, and it was reading The Rational Optimist by Matt Ridley. And I didn't know anything about economics when I read it. I really didn't have a clue about any economic concepts. He takes it from very simple terms. He explains how a mutually beneficial trade works, and how if you buy something for money, you don't losing out, and the person selling you something isn't losing out, and both parties are gaining something. And when you can make 10 things instead of one thing, or if you can sell 10 things instead of selling stuff yourself, you can pay someone to sell something for you, and you pay people to mediate for you, and the fact that middlemen are doing a huge service and not just taking money off the top for no reason, and all of this stuff that I think lots of left-wing thinkers are very smart, and they understand all these concepts, and I'm not trying to say that they're stupid, but I think there's a part of me that thinks that communists don't really get what I'm saying. They don't really get what capitalism has done. And when people say communism has failed every time it's been tried, I think what they're really saying, what's left unsaid, is communism has failed every time it's been tried, but capitalism has mostly succeeded. And that is to say that the civilizations that were built on capitalism are going pretty well. And I'm not trying to say that I never lost my compassion for poor people and people working in low-paying jobs, people working on minimum wage. I haven't lost my concern for their wealth and their quality of life. I'm still interested in that, but the number one thing that has made poor people's lives better is capitalism and economic growth. It's really staggering how much better a poor person living in England now lives compared to a rich person living 200 years ago. When you think about all of the amenities that are accessible, and the fact that supermarkets exist, and the fact that, we have institutions that help poor people now, like the NHS, like unemployment benefit, and all these government schemes that would not be possible if it weren't for all of the wealthy people in the country who go to work and make enough money that they have surplus left over that they can pay for taxes. And I'm not necessarily against that. I'm not an economist. I don't want to go too much into economics and taxes and all that sort of thing, but if everyone was living hand to mouth, which they were before the discovery of trade and the division of labour, if everyone was living day to day, not knowing where the next meal was coming from, concerned that their children were going to die of starvation. There's no way taxes would be able to pay for the NHS. So what I'm trying to say is I want everyone, not just people on the left, but people on the right, or people on, libertarians, whoever. I think it's important for everyone to understand the amazing power of economics and its society, and I think it's a very interesting topic to learn about. So if you're interested in politics and all these new identity politics and all that sort of thing, maybe you should, I think it could benefit everyone to have a bit of a broader picture of the amazing steps that humanity has taken since we walked on two legs around the earth, on the earth, I should say. I'm starting to degenerate into rambling now, so I think I'm going to finish it there. I know this isn't quite the same as the other videos I've made, so please leave your feedback in the comments below. Thank you.